everyone, and welcome back to the Words with Me podcast. My name is Kirsten Bush. I'm an engineer millennial, and I'm finding my footing while becoming the highest version of myself. So usually I like to talk a lot about self-improvement, just things that I've been learning, kind of focusing on mental health and bettering yourself. But today I wanted to talk about something completely different. I'd like to think of this as confessions of a small content creator, or even like trying to become a small content creator, because I looked back this morning on some of my old posts and I really just wanted to reflect and think, okay, when did I actually start doing this? Like, when was the first time I actually posted anything? If you didn't know, I had a blog before this called Twinly Me. I have a twin, so I thought I'd put a nice little spin on it. But looking back at that this morning, the first post that I made was June or July of 2013. And at the time I was in high school, I was kind of just getting my feet wet and getting excited about the things I was focusing on and writing about. I think looking back, the content that I made had a much more heavy Christian spin to it, kind of focusing on Bible studies and Bible verses, because that's where I was at the time, and I was kind of strengthening my relationship with God and just expressing that. And I think more than just the type of content I was making, I was really excited just having the opportunity to start writing and creating something and just sharing it for multiple people to see, people that I didn't even know really. I understand now that there was this small sense of fear or hesitation, not necessarily the fear of creating something, but the fear of having that thing that I created be seen by people. And I kept that up for a long time. The last post I made was 2019, so only a few years ago. And that's when I started doing Words with Me. So the type of content that I wanted to make, I kind of wanted to change what I had been doing before, just because I was in a different part of my life and I was kind of getting to understand myself a bit more outside of maybe the things that I was taught or the way that I was raised, just kind of growing and becoming my own person. Thinking about that, and seeing where I am now, now I have a podcast that goes along with the blog, and really this point I'm taking more of the actions and the steps needed to put myself out there, because really there's so much of yourself that you can only see and learn and understand when you put yourself out there for other people to see. So that's where I am. And honestly speaking, this morning when I was thinking about where I started and where I am, there was a small part of me that was asking deep down inside, okay, good for you. What do you have to show for it? And that's not the best place to be. It's not the best question to ask, because one, that's just coming from me being self-critical of myself, maybe judging myself too harshly. But I think what kind of started that, there's another creator that I, support, and they had just shared, oh, we've passed, 1,000 plays and this many downloads of the podcast. And, obviously that's great on them. That's a huge accomplishment. But I started thinking back to where I am, and, the podcast just passed 300 plays, and, it's not necessarily reaching as much as I would like, but I understand that there's work that's involved, and also it's a process. I've never started a podcast before, so I owe it to myself to show myself grace when it comes to stepping into new waters, into new territory, and just actually taking the time to learn something. One important thing that I had to remind myself is that just because we do something, with the best intentions, with the goals and the drive and the motivation, it doesn't always mean that we'll get the quote unquote success or the type of results that we think we might be deserving of, or in some cases entitled to. And for me, I had to just take a real look at myself as a small content creator and just understand that there's a place where we all have to start. I think a lot of the times we see influencers and creators who have made it big, and we kind of just see the end result and the finish line. But, for every big creator that's out there that's made it, there's probably, 20 small creators that are still trying to find where they belong and still trying to hone in on what they actually want to share. And that's kind of where I am now, even considering that I am in a new phase of my life and in a new chapter, and I'm just continuing the journey. This just kind of reminds me that what I've done in the past is somewhat of a reflection of where I was back then. I mean, I could look back and see where I was, what my influences kind of were, and understand that I've changed. And it's cool to kind of see that progression from 2013 to now in 2022, kind of still, doing the same thing, writing, but also making sure that I'm actually putting my face and my voice and my energy out there for other people to receive. Something that we don't always talk about is that, the fear that kind of comes with creating content and putting your mark on the world. And I think a lot of the times, because we might have this burning passion and this desire inside of us, sometimes that desire and that passion isn't enough to overcome the fear of being judged, or the fear of having somebody look at our content and maybe not like it, or the fear of just making a mistake or doing something wrong. And, we have to learn by doing. There's going to be trial and error and everything. And I, for one, being someone that's been doing it for a little while, I understand that there's a lot of impatience that can come up. But for me, I'm reminding myself, and, I really believe that with time, there is, those changes and those milestones and accomplishments that you reach. But the most important thing that I can do for me, and for other people who enjoy my content and who have been supporting me, is to keep going. Because I have to believe in myself. At the end of the day, if nobody else believed in me, I could rest on the fact that I believe in myself. And honestly speaking, there was a point with the other blog, Twinly Me, where I did take a break for a long time. And I think it was just because I was kind of getting tired of, writing about the same things and doing the same type of content. And I wanted to just branch out. But during that time, I was in college, I was graduating college, I was starting a job. So from then to now, I was in two completely different places in my life. When I started writing blogs, I was in high school, so I obviously had a lot more time, a lot more freedom to do those things. And having a full-time job now, I had to remember that I need to balance my time accordingly, and that I actually have to make sure that I'm being responsible, one, because I have a job, that pays me. So I do have to make sure I do that. But I have to actually schedule my time and manage my time and think things ahead before I actually do them. And the same thing can be said with, the content for YouTube, for the blog, for my Instagram pages. I started this year in 2022, actually using a planner to plan out what I want. And obviously it's still January, so I'm still learning, but it's been helpful to keep things organized. And I think something that is hard when you are a small content creator, because you might have the desire to just make things and make things look great and put things out, it is pacing yourself. Because it's important to pace yourself, because you don't need to burn yourself out before you've really gotten into what it is that you feel called to do, or maybe what it is that you enjoy doing. It doesn't help to burn yourself out. Burnout's never good, but that's something that I'm learning. Just being patient with myself, knowing that, it takes time to get the results that you want, and also just remembering that I need balance in my life, before I can expect any type of huge success or any type of, blow up or anything like that. Something else that I want to talk about is kind of within creating and producing things, there's that joy and that desire to make things that I like seeing, things that I would enjoy. But I think just in the times that we're in now, there's also this added pressure of blowing up and of being successful. And it's kind of like, a two-edged sword. So, I know from other people's experiences on YouTube and other content creators that I follow and that I like, there is kind of this two-edged sword when it comes to that. For me, I want to see my platforms and the podcast and the blog become, as big as it possibly can be, but that's not necessarily something that I think is gonna, pay my bills, or something that I think is going to, become my full-time job. I would say at this point it's more of a part-time job, just because I do have a full-time job because I'm an engineer. If it does get to that point, okay, sure, I welcome good things, I welcome success, I welcome the things that the world and that God has in store for me. I welcome those things, but I don't want to work and create and produce solely for the goal of blowing up, because then my intention isn't necessarily there anymore. My intention for doing all these things is helping people who come from a similar background as me, maybe people who feel like they're late bloomers, who waited until later in life to experience new things or are learning some things later in life. And I say later in life even though I'm still in my 20s, which is funny, but yeah, I mean, other people who kind of relate to my experiences and who have experienced anxiety and insecurity and doubt, and just kind of want somebody to relate to, somebody who they can kind of grow with, you could say. And my focus is just that, it's not necessarily to get big. And I think because of that pressure, that's when that question, that little voice of what do you have to show for it, kind of comes up, and it's a lot clearer because of that pressure. Honestly, it's a growing period for me, the same way that my platforms are growing. I just kind of have to look back and remember why I started doing this, why I enjoy doing this. And I think for anybody else out there who is in the same position, maybe you're creating and producing content and sharing information, and you are also in the beginning stages, or maybe you're also trying to find your footing and understand your niche and what it is that you want to do. Hopefully this is encouragement. Maybe this will help somebody know that they're not alone. But this isn't, just a foreign experience. But I do want to hopefully remind anybody watching this that the things that you're doing to help others, the things that you do to uplift and encourage yourself even, they're still important. I think we discount a lot of the things that we're able to do and then the talents and gifts that we have because we're comparing ourselves to other people. And I'm guilty, 100%, I can say that. But we discount a lot of what we can actually bring to the table and bring to the world and just bring to people around us because we're too focused on what the next person is doing. And it's easy to feel like you're not doing well or you're not succeeding because you aren't at 1,000 plays on your podcast. Maybe you don't have 1 million subscribers on your YouTube channel. Maybe, you aren't able to dedicate as much time to creating content as you would like. Just know that you're not alone, and, we'll get through it. I would say just focus on why you enjoy doing what you're doing. Don't be afraid to look back on the past, but learn from it. Don't hold yourself to it, and just continue to learn and grow. Well, that's it for me. Just some scattered remarks and thoughts that I was having. But if you want to hear more of my content, check out the Words With Me podcast. It's streaming on most platforms. I'm on Instagram at Words With Me Podcast, and the blog is www.wordswithmepodcast.com. And you can also find me on my personal Instagram page at Karsten Ashley Bush. And thanks for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.